I want to have that same type of relationships with my daughters where, they feel safe with me and just being vulnerable with me, while also trying to teach them some of the things that I've had to learn along my journey of learning more about ourselves and our emotions and making sure we're prioritizing financial stability and establishing like work ethic in the house and things like that, and just leading by example in those areas. Those are things I really look forward to like teaching my daughters as they get older.
Welcome in to Menfolk Journeys, the podcast of great conversations with men. I'm your host, Chris Foster, and we're going to explore how we wear this beautiful and confusing mantle of manhood in the 21st century. Look, I get it. In public life, a lot of men are knuckleheads. But in private life, we can be thoughtful and we can be reflective if we have the right conversation, if we feel comfortable talking about our story. And we all have a great story to tell. And we can all learn from those stories. We can learn about who we've been, who we are, and who we want to be. And that's why we're going to have this conversation, so we can learn from other men just like us. And in this episode, we're going to talk with my friend Justin. Justin has a beautiful and remarkable and unusual definition for success and what it means for a man to be successful. In addition, he's running his own business, raising 3 daughters, and learning how confidence can make his life better and how it has made his life what it is. It's a fantastic conversation with a hardworking, fantastic person. I hope you enjoy it. Welcome in to Menfolk Journeys. Well, all right. Well, Justin Werner, welcome in.
What's up, Chris? Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. Glad you're here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. My name's Justin. I'm 34 years old. I live with my 3 daughters in Los Angeles. I run my own fitness studio, which empowers independent health professionals to improve and maximize their business. And we run some personal training operations there. I'm originally from Michigan, but California is my home now.
Fantastic. All right. So Michigan, walk me back. Where in Michigan you from?
From Battle Creek, which is actually the cereal city capital of America. It has its pros and its cons. You get to wake up every day smelling Fruity Pebbles outside.
Is that the General Mills factory?
Yeah, General Mills, Post,
Okay.
Kellogg's. That's was home based to all of them. I think General Mills actually moved out. But yeah, Post and Kellogg's. It's the home base for those guys.
That's interesting. And now, of course, Los Angeles couldn't be more different than Battle Creek.
Yes.
And so I want to just ask about that. And I want to drill into the hometown first. So you just mentioned that, you could wake up and smell the Fruity Pebbles and you could smell the Frosted Flakes. So describe for me, Justin, that young boy, Justin. Right? Because right now you're 34, you run your own business, you're a father of 3. Clearly you started off years and years ago as a young boy. I don't even know if you thought when you were a young boy at 34, you'd be living in LA, running a business with 3 daughters. So
Right.
Describe for me that young boy. When you look back at that young boy, Justin, what was he like?
Yeah, I was a shy, quiet kid. But I was always involved in sports, so I was getting my socializing in there. But as I grew up and even into like my teenage years, I always felt like if I wasn't doing something or like being involved, I was missing out. As almost like the FOMO. But Battle Creek is a fun, stable place, but there's not a lot of opportunity there besides locking yourself into a nice factory job at Kellogg's or Post.
Mm-hmm.
And that isn't something that ever like seemed like appealing to me. So I was always curious about what life was like outside Battle Creek. And as like a family, we never went on any long distance vacations. So I never got to like experience other culture or like more diversity in a community.
Hmm.
Um, but with the growing of the internet and, media, I was always like, oh, it seems like there's so much fun stuff going on out in the world. So yeah, I always had like a curiosity for like, what else is out there.
That is interesting where growing up in an environment like that, especially if you didn't travel, I can imagine for the curious mind that it feeling really isolated, right? That you
Yeah.
knew that there was more out there and just trying to get access to that. Did you think when you were younger that if you weren't getting the exposure from your family situation to move to say, okay, kids, we're going to go visit here, we're going to go visit there, is that something instinctively that you thought, man, if I'm going to actually experience life outside of Battle Creek, I am going to have to do that? Did you
Yeah.
think that?
Yeah. When I was in high school, I'd like already came to this conclusion that I needed to be in like a big city.
Hmm.
Um, and being in the Midwest, like Chicago was kind of the close to home hub, where there's a lot more action happening. But, thinking about it now, it's like I remember we had a field trip to the Science Museum in Chicago and just seeing like the skyline. And I was just like, I could sense like the different energy of being in like a big city,
Uh
like
huh.
going past Soldier Field. Thinking back at it, I know that was like an inspiring moment.
Sure. Right, because you realize that there was a life outside of Battle Creek, right? And that this was a big life. Did you feel did you ever feel like you couldn't do that? Or did you always feel like you could move yourself out?
I don't think there was a lot of doubt, which I was reflecting on this maybe like a month ago about just the progression of things over time and some of these like bigger life movements that I think I've experienced. I'm like, oh, like I was so confident in the moment, even though you run the same risk of moving to another city and then it not working out and then going home. But like just I guess the lack of doubt
Hmm.
kind of kept me, focused on the prize there.
So that's interesting. So you said that you were a shy child. Usually, shy children or introverts are pretty observant and they're looking around. Do you think that when you were looking around at what other people were doing, you realized that you could do something differently than them and that gave you that confidence? I'm curious where the confidence came from.
Yeah, I think what seemed appealing to me was like a new environment. Because in Battle Creek, like everybody knows everybody, you know all the people that are your age that go to the school across the town, and like everybody's in everybody's, drama, I guess you could say, high school days. Um, and thinking about being in a space where you can kind of like create your own identity and,
Hmm.
be whoever you want to be, or, I knew there was a lot more opportunity there, even in like a career path. But yeah, I think just the looking at the upside of like kind of like a new fresh slate with lots of opportunities. I was like, I knew home was always going to be home.
Hmm.
If I ever wanted to come back, but you never know unless you kind of take the risk.
That's right. And that idea of risk taking is it's a lot easier when you're younger. You don't
Hmm.
have a whole lot else to lose, and like you said, if things went to crap. You could always go back home. But I love that idea that even at that time, you were thinking about carving out your own identity, or at least seeking your identity. Right?
Yeah.
What your identity was going to be that was different. So tell me, I'm assuming that you did, but yes, you went to Chicago.
Yeah. Went to Chicago.
How
I was
old?
there. I was there. I moved to Chicago when I was 17. So originally I was like, all right, this is my ticket out of the house. I'm going to move to the city. I'm going to go to school. Um, and I had some support from my family. My dad's side was a little bit more like, hey, you need to stick around like your family because like that's what's most important in life. And and I know my mom kind of had her hands full, so she was like, "Hey, like, you want to go pursue your dreams or whatever, go for it."
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I did Chicago, and that was like I fell in love living down in like the Loop, like just like the energy of the city. There's
Yeah.
so many different types of people that I'd never got to meet living in Michigan. Um, and I noticed a lot, like just people's mindset was so much different. There was a lot more like forward thinking and ideas of living outside of the box concepts that I was hearing from people in school. So quickly, like once I was there, I was like, all right, I'm in the right spot.
That's awesome. That it felt right. So
Yeah.
so tell me about that young man, 17 years old, feeling confident, going to Chicago, and a lot of people might say, "Man, that's really young to move out of the house." But it's interesting, Justin, because in previous generations, like way back generations, um, 17 was considered adult, right? I mean, it was like if you're an apprentice or if you're working on a farm or if you're in any environment. There's this really interesting passage from a book called Interview with a Vampire. I don't know if it's Anne Rice book. It's from a long time ago, but it's from the narration of the character who was 17, and he says, well, today 17 is really young, but back then 17 meant I'm a young man and I'm moving up. I mean, I think of
Yeah.
someone like Alexander Hamilton in the 1700s when he was a clerk at age 10, right? And went across the world at age 17, right? And he was already considering himself, hey, I'm a man now, right? So you're 17 in Chicago. And what did that do for your confidence in terms of knowing that you could go to a place and be independent?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a growing phase. Because like I said, I looked at it as like this ticket to freedom, but then that also came with a lot more responsibility and just making sure that I had money to pay my rent, or how was I going to budget my my groceries, or how I was going to feed myself throughout the week and
Mm-hmm.
balance having fun. Uh, that that especially over time has like gives you more confidence with managing the workload of things.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it was a shell shock at first, and there was definitely some rough months and patches. But
As there should be.
like looking back on it, I'm like, you learn. Sometimes you learn the hard way, and that's how you grow and you learn.
That's right. It is a funny thing because there's this idea of growth through challenge, right? Where if you don't risk, it really blocks your ability to learn new things and to grow and to kind of quote unquote
Totally.
reach your potential. Um, so, what kind of work did you do when you were in Chicago? How did you make ends meet?
Yeah, I did it all. I worked at GNC selling supplements. I worked in the gym space. I did some bartending, some bussing tables. I actually had a brief window there where I worked at the United Center, which I was like, oh, it's going to be an awesome job. I'm working where like the Blackhawks and the Bulls play, but it was cleaning the stadium after the games. And
Yes.
it's like its third shift gig, and I was like, this isn't as cool as I thought it was going to be.
That's hilarious. I
Yeah.
love that. That is hilarious. You're like, this is awesome. Oh, and cleaning the toilets after a
Yeah, I
game.
was like, all right, maybe not so.
And so with that, you scrabbled around and did lots of stuff. But you mentioned GNC and you mentioned fitness center. Is this where your interest in fitness started to kind of germinate a bit?
Yeah. I mean, as I mentioned, like I would always played sports, so being in shape and like being active was just always part of my life from
Mm-hmm.
as young as I can remember. I started playing ice hockey when I was 4 years old, so just the routine of like exercising and doing activity was so normal for me. And originally, I was studying architecture in school, which is a much more like sitting down and being hyper focused for extended periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then lost some of my interest in that career field.
Sure.
Um, and playing hockey, I had a coach like recommend is like, hey, you should like look into the fitness industry. And at the time I was working at GNC and I was learning more about like supplements and like ways to optimize your body and performance. And that was kind of the segment into the fitness world. And I remember I made like a Facebook post one day and I was like, I want to work in a gym. And I still have it. I see it occasionally every year when it pops up. And there's so many people that are like, go for it and do it. And that was like the moment I pursued like becoming a personal trainer and
Sure.
got my career started up.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I want to get into that personal training bit a bit. What does it actually do for you when you work with your clients, when you see your clients improve? Like, I'm assuming that there's a gratification, there's some
Totally.
type of connection that you make with them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And getting into the fitness space, I was like, I'm going to work with professional athletes and help people that want to perform better. And that wasn't the initial demographic that I met with at the beginning of my training career. It was more of like the office guy who's dealing with postural imbalances and has a hurt back and his knees are hurting. And being able to help people improve their quality of life became like very fulfilling. Like that's where I was like, okay, like, people are giving me hugs and are super thankful and being emotional about helping them lose weight or really changing their overall life, like healthy lifestyle routine. And that's when I was like, all right, this is like, I want my clients to succeed just as much as they do, because not only are they changing their lives, but then it's a fulfilling thing for myself.
Yeah, I think that I've been physical my whole life too. So I was a swimmer in high school and in college, and I've never not been active. So I don't know what it's like to actually get out of shape, and to be heavier, to be self-conscious about my physical appearance. And so I have a lot of empathy for people who do. But what I know about me is that the physical side of life, I think, can't be understated in terms of how important it is for every aspect of your life. I mean, there's a bazillion million stories of people who have turned their entire life around when it comes to mentally, professionally, spiritually, from a mood perspective, once they start transforming physically what they feel and what they look like. Have you seen that to be the case in your profession?
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen people turn, get this confidence to change up their career, pursue approaching people to like improve their relationships. I have one story of a guy and he was like, hey man, I just want to be like confident in myself. And he was like a successful artist and lost like 80 pounds and got like super shredded and went to Vegas and ended up like meeting his now wife. He's like, I seen her. It was like so hyped up when he came back from this trip. He's like, I like approached this girl and and they like went great. And just from him transforming his like health and getting more confidence in that area, I see how it can like correlate with helping people in other spaces in their life.
Yeah, and it's a funny thing because you started off talking about the confidence to be able to move out of home and be okay. It seems to me like a lot of your professional life and your vocation is actually wrapped around this idea of confidence, both receiving confidence and giving confidence. Do you think that's a through line?
No, totally. That's a great, other scenarios off the top of my head where that's
like what? Like what are some other scenarios?
I just like, I'm always trying to help out my buddies and my friends. And I've realized it, from moving to Chicago and encouraging other friends to move to Chicago, it's like trying to instill that confidence in other people to make changes in their life.
Mm-hmm.
For me, we all have our own self-doubts, but like, I feel like I kind of lean into the things that I feel like I really want to like chase after. And that's been rewarding over my life so far. And I can recognize how, through other periods, I've tried to encourage other people to like, take some of those same risks and be confident, even though we don't necessarily know how things are going to pan out.
Right. And I think that's a really interesting mindset. And it's an interesting through line through your life's journey where confidence becomes, I'm a big word guy. So I think confidence is a very powerful word.
Yeah.
To me, one of the most, a little bit of backstory about this. There's there's a book called the Edic Saga, and this is actually a collection of Norse mythology that a monk wrote in the 1100s in Iceland, because it was all an oral tradition. So he started to write all this stuff down. And one of the stories was about Odin, who's the Allfather in the Norse mythology. And he's talking about magic and magic words and powerful words. And he says what humans especially forget, and what he knows, being the Allfather, is he says the most powerful magic word of all is help, because you both give it and you receive it. Yeah. You have to be open enough to receive it, right? And you have to be courageous enough to ask for it, right? But it's almost like a runner-up, or at least number 3 is something like confidence, right? Because you have to feel it, right? You have to feel it, and you also want to project it. And when you project confidence, it's a really interesting thing. People believe you, right? People gravitate to the ones who feel confident because they seem more decisive. They exude this energy of not just confidence, but competence.
Yeah.
Right. So now, do you consciously think about being confident, or have you now trained yourself so that it's more of a habit?
I feel like in certain areas, it's more of a habit. Like I definitely know in my career, as I've pivoting more from my own independent practice towards helping others with their business practice. Some things feel so organic and natural to me because I've done it so many times and been successful with it, that where for other people it is challenging or scary, or there's that lack of confidence. Mm-hmm. But also, I only know what I know, and I'm trying to learn more consistently and overcome new challenges. And sometimes you don't know what's going to happen. And I'm not 100% confident in every one of those moments, but that's kind of, where you got to take the risk of leaning into believing in yourself and knowing you're going to either learn from something or it's going to work out how you expect it to.
That's right. Actually, what I like about that is that you didn't even use the word failure. You didn't even use that word. You said you're going to learn something, or it's going to work out the way you want. You didn't say mistakes and fail and learn. It's just learning, right? Yeah. To me is, it's a mindset that somebody has to have through life, I believe, to really feel like they're going to be successful, right? And that, failure is an interesting thing because, of course, you fail in moments, right? But instead of labeling it failure, labeling it learning, labeling it not a setback or challenge or whatever that is. So I think that one of the things that I do believe is that you have to sometimes learn lessons all by yourself, right? You can't be taught a lesson, right? You have to experience the lesson. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. And I've learned by trying to help others too, that me telling somebody how it's going to work out isn't what's going to give them the confidence to do it. You got to lean into it. Some people need some guidance into things. But yeah, it's just kind of taking the risk.
Right. And there's a value of risk. There's another episode we did where we talk about risk, and in the end of the day, it seemed like you have taken a lot of risks. I mean, you went from Chicago to Los Angeles. Yeah. How did you get to Los Angeles from Chicago?
Well, Chicago was great until about 4 winters in.
Come on, you lived in Battle Creek. You knew what you were getting into.
Battle Creek, you get in your car and you drive to the store. Chicago, you got to wait for the bus and the train and stand outside the elements a little bit more. So I got myself established in fitness. So the idea of moving somewhere where it was warmer and more pleasant weather.
So you got a certification for fitness in Chicago?
Yeah. And that's where I got started with things. And then I figured like Los Angeles or Miami were the next kind of big hubs that I imagined people like wanted to take care of their like overall aesthetic.
It's true.
And just from checking in with some of the clients I was working with at the time, or not very many people had great things to say about Miami. It's a fun town to make a pit stop in and get out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's more positive feedback about Los Angeles, but I had never been to either city. So it was December, forget which year. But there was a big fitness convention. And in training, you need to constantly get like continuing education. So there's a big fitness convention in San Diego that I would be able to go get all my continuing education credits. So I just kind of last minute booked a flight, went to the fitness convention at the convention center, and
in December? Oh my God, your eyeballs must have fallen out of your head.
Yeah, it was like 75 and like sunny blue skies. I was like, wow, this is incredible. So I was like, okay, the West Coast is definitely. So yeah, I just kind of made up a decision. My cousin, who is like one of my best friends, we left Michigan together to go to Chicago. He was going to move to Los Angeles. So I was like, all right, I'm going to know some people over there. He, helped me with the transition across the country, with a place to stay for a little bit. And then I quickly got to work on the fitness grind over here. And, that's it. You move to a new city, you get a job, you start paying your bills, and you're there.
You start getting into Los Angeles, right?
Yeah.
No, I love that. So I've got a question for you. So this was, you're young, you're a person getting started, and I talked about, the challenges of, when you actually start coming in. This is Mr. Peanut's coming in to show off his stuff. But in 2025, it seems that there are a lot of young men who at 17 seem to be kids.
Yeah.
Even at 20 seem to be kids. Even when they graduate from college, if they want to go college, or seem to be kids. Whereas, if you're 21 and you're in the trades and you've been in the trades for 2 or 3 years, you don't seem as much of a kid.
Yeah.
What are you seeing in terms of some of the young men that you're experiencing, and engaging with in the fitness community? How do you see the delay, it seems, of young men actually becoming men?
It's definitely something I've noticed as I've tried to like help and mentor some younger guys. I think one, it's probably you see the competition or how big of a gap it is from kind of like to create yourself to being maybe what you want to be as a guy. And that can, with social media and like just kind of having that exposure of how maybe far you are from what your idea of having it all is. And I think that probably gets in the way of some people from taking some initiative steps. Also, I think it's easier now than ever to be distracted. You got to be disciplined and have some grit to like start with step 1 and, step 1.1, step 1.2, and you got to stay really consistent. And it's super easy to pick up your phone and start swiping away and have an hour or two pass by, without you focusing on things that are going to make your life better or help you feel more fulfilled from like chasing after your purpose. So I think like it's harder for the younger generation. I just think there's more distractions and obstacles that are right in front of them that may deter people from really pursuing what they're passionate about.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because with those distractions, they maybe lose sight of what they are passionate about, right? They don't know quite what to be passionate about because they don't take those first steps. I was talking with another guy where sometimes the fact of jumping in and committing seems so daunting because they're worried about what they're not doing if they commit to one thing. Because if you're doing one thing, you're not doing something else.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that is a delay in itself. But I also think it's interesting that you mention this idea of purpose. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's a theory I can't prove. Maybe there's a connection between finding at least the glimmer of a purpose and that sense of kind of quote unquote becoming a man. So I'll ask you, Justin, when do you think you quote unquote became a man? When you look back at the younger Justin and there's a transition, it's not overnight, but there's a transition that happens. When do you feel like Justin the boy became Justin the man?
I definitely noticed it when I had my first daughter.
Oh, that
Um,
would do it.
it was immediate, and I tell people who are having their first child, especially like other guys who are like stepping into fatherhood, I'm like, when you hold your baby and you're like, all right, this thing just, this is like an extension of me. The at least for me, I was like, this is what matters most, and like making sure that I'm doing the best, not only for like myself, but like for her is. It was like a very pivotal moment for me. I was like, I'm responsible for this child and like their childhood and their upbringing, and I need to have it put together. Not only for myself but for my family now.
Mm-hmm. So how old were you when you had your first child?
It's 24.
24.
Yeah, which after being on my own from 17, I was like, oh, I'm an adult. I know how to take care of myself and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
But now, like even reflecting back, I'm like, wow, it's kind of crazy to think about.
But it is interesting though. I think you made a really observant and insightful parallel. If someone goes, let's say, a quote unquote college route, they graduate when they're 22, they get their first job at 23. 7 years later, that young man is 30. Not unusual to be a first time parent when you're 30.
Right. Yeah, totally.
But because you started an independent life at 17, you had 7 years before you actually transitioned into fatherhood. 7 years of building an independent manhood before becoming responsible for somebody else. So in that context, it doesn't seem that far off.
No, it's actually like it's like you put it. It's kind of right on par to the time window of learning on your own.
Right? I mean, to me, that doesn't seem inappropriate. And there's no appropriateness or inappropriateness whenever you have children. You have children, but some people might say, "Gosh, you were really young when you had kids," and you're like, maybe in years, but not necessarily in experience.
Yeah, totally. That's
right?
It's a good correlation.
Right. And so it seems to me that you were, I mean, I'm telling you, no man, whether they're 30, 40, 50, or 24, is prepared to be a father.
Totally.
Nobody's prepared. But you were as prepared as you could be.
Could be, yeah.
Right?
It's funny. I had somebody tell me, they're like, it's 9 months for a reason for you to think you're prepared. And when everything kind of goes out the window. Read as many books as you want, but when that baby gets here, it's a different ballgame.
It's a totally different ballgame. No, you're right. And it's interesting you say that, that's kind of the time when you thought that you, quote unquote, became a man. I'm trying to think back for me when that happened. I think I felt more like maybe a little bit before, and probably maybe when I got married, but not that much older. So probably around maybe 26, 27, where I decided that I was going to commit to marriage.
Yeah,
right.
That's like a big thing too.
And that was a thing, right? So if I'm going to commit to marriage, now I'm definitely not a boy, right? I'm not a boy now. And I think you're right. When we had our first child too, I realized that my life wasn't about me anymore, which was kind of an odd thing, right? Because yes, I want to pursue my dreams and move along, but suddenly my entire position and perspective shifted because I felt like everything happened about how I was going to protect and preserve them and what I was going to do for them. So my needs kind of took a real step back, and sometimes they float up, right? Because you get a little bit selfish and you want to do your thing. Yeah. What I think is interesting about your story, though, is that you had a profession and a vocation that you were working towards, had your children. Did you change how you wanted to pursue your vocation when you had kids? Did that change the direction of your pursuits?
Not necessarily. I got into personal training when I was right around my 21st birthday. Mm-hmm. And even at that time, I was like, I want to get into this because I want to own like my own gym and like
Oh, that was already a dream.
that. It like was all kind of came together. I was like, all right, I like fitness. Like I'm gonna be a trainer in the fitness space, and that's like, all right, I've worked in the fitness space. I want to own my own gym, and that is kind of where my brain was like locked onto from then. Um, Having a child definitely put more pressure, um, just to provide for the household. And that maybe it probably did have an influence on, making sure I was taking advantage of opportunities at 5 in the morning rather than 7 in the morning.
Right.
But I also know that those little habits there have compounded over the last decade is what's helped enable me to take the next step and being able to have an opportunity to open my own gym. So, yeah, I'm sure it all there's a connection to it.
Yeah, you know what? I like what you just said, though. You said that these everyday habits kind of compounded over the last decade, where there's the theory of 10,000 hours, right? That Michael Jordan, 10,000 hours. Or what Bruce Lee said, which I love. He says he wasn't afraid of someone who knew 10,000 kicks. He was afraid of the guy who practiced one kick 10,000 times. Right?
Yeah.
That's the master of that thing.
Yeah.
So. I think over the past decade, though, as your brain started to form, still as we do, and our habits started to form, you cultivated that habit of that 5 o'clock appointment, and whatever appointment that you needed to hit, what you were going to do. And so, as you started to move through it, I'm sure that there was a business side of the fitness industry, and then there's the fitness side, right? There's the personal side.
Yep.
So what are you learning from both sides? And can you learn things from the business side that you apply to fitness and vice versa? Or are they two separate, different disciplines that you've had to master?
There's definitely an interconnection between the two. I think the first couple years of fitness, like being well-rounded in terms of like fitness education, working with injuries, working on performance, working on being more educated in nutrition. And then as I progressed into my career and started to learn more about like people's behavioral habits and how that ultimately affects everything. And then, how do people respond to different types of communication and how to make people feel safer and more comfortable and learning some more of like the life stuff that is involved in fitness. There's like it's helped me as a professional to help other people by understanding some more of the business and like understanding how humans operate, and then the fitness side of things, where it's like which exercises are most effective.
Sure.
Like that.
Well, as a natural introvert, which you tend to be a little bit more intuitive, and introverts tend to pay attention a little bit more to people. Especially when it comes to men, what have you learned about paying attention to men who want to become more physically able and fit?
Working with like busy professionals, which has primarily been like the demographic of my clients, there's always like I don't know, like an excuse, but there's always a barrier to like what's limiting people from achieving what they want. And a lot of times it's just like a lack of priority and taking care of themselves. Sometimes it takes people going to the doctor and the doctor being like, hey, like you're not going to live longer, for them to like, okay, I actually need to make this change. Whereas like we all know we need to exercise, and everybody would love to have big muscles and be like super defined. But it's like a lot of every guy and woman, we got things that get in the way of allowing us to achieve that. And with the guys, it's a lot of it's like a lack of time. That's probably the most common thing that I hear is like there's no time, especially people who are parents, which I can relate. But it's building the priority of like doing what's good for you so you can be the best version of yourself.
We'll be right back. That's right. And I think that it's interesting because we all have the same amount of time every day. Every single person has 24 hours by the spin of the earth, right?
Mhm.
Um, and it's not necessarily someone doesn't have time for it. It's really a question of what you do with the time that you've got.
Right. Yep.
And like you said, is the priority of how you manage your time and manage your life and what is more important than other things.
Mhm.
Um, and so as you start thinking about this, you have to balance your priorities, right? You're a father of three. You've got your own business you're trying to run. How do you manage your priorities kind of at a high level? Like, do you stack them of the things that are most important? And if so, or if not, how does it play out on a day-to-day basis for you?
Something that I've worked on more over the past like 5 or 6 years, especially after the pandemic. I feel like the pandemic was a good, because my mindset all throughout my 20s was like, I need to work as much as possible, even if that's like me sleeping 4 hours at night or not being able to spend as much time with my family or work out during the middle of the day. Um, which, I know it's something I maybe needed to do to get to where I'm at now. And can't look back and like regret that. But also now it's more of like balancing. It's like, okay, I don't have to work 7 days a week. I can,
Mm-hmm.
instead of doing the one or two appointments on a Sunday, I can take the day off and, hang out with my friends and family. Um, or even something I've changed up over the last couple of years. Me and my business partner were talking about this. Like when I work with somebody, I work with them for 55 minutes. So I can have 5 minutes to myself to kind of like reboot in between appointments, where 10 years ago, I would work 10 appointments from, hour to hour nonstop. And I wouldn't
Right.
like eat throughout the day, just try to chug some caffeine and keep going. So as I've gotten older, I've learned to kind of make sure I'm prioritizing those things that allow me to like feel good about myself. Cause at the end of the day, if you're just working and you're missing out on everything else, it's like, what's
Mm-hmm.
the whole point of working for it,
Sure. So how do you make that calculus on a day-to-day basis? How do you prioritize your time? What type of a rubric or I don't know understanding do you have of your day?
Yeah. Well, work still needs to be done. The bills still got to get paid. So that's always like a high priority, but just putting some boundaries around like when I'm available. I
Mm-hmm.
make sure that whenever my girls are done with school, done working after that. So I can enjoy the evenings with them since I'm always off to work in the mornings. Uh, and then exercising. We all have our seasons where you hit it a little harder than others.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know, like, if I'm not working out, like, I'm not going to feel good and confident myself. And
Sure.
I feel like I need to practice what I preach. It's like I owe it to myself and my clients.
Sure.
So, balancing like spending time with family, focusing on like my business goals, my personal goals, and then getting some activity in are like, three things that I value. And
Mm-hmm.
I make sure I check all those boxes.
Yeah, right. Because you figure out what's important to you, and then you do the things that are important. Now, did you see that growing up as a model in terms of your own dad? And now that you're a father, do you have these reflections about looking at your own father and what he was doing and how he balances time and what you're doing and how you're balancing your time and the image that you're showing your daughters about how to balance time? Do you think about that connection?
Yeah. Especially as becoming like a parent, like I can understand my parents better. Um, me and my dad have a great relationship. I'm so blessed to like be able to call him my best friend.
Mm,
Uh, he's always been there for me when I need him and as a support system. Unfortunately, he never led by a great example,
hmm
or really showed me how to do things the right way. Or, I've been able to like discover those on my own. But he was always like, when I fell down, he was like there to kind of pick me up and encourage me to keep going and let me know I always got somebody in my corner, whether I make a great choice or a poor choice. And that's something that I know is like super important. Like I want to have that same type of relationships with my daughters where, they feel safe with me, and just being vulnerable with me, while also trying to teach them some of the things that I've had to learn along my journey, of like, learning more about ourselves and our emotions, and making sure we're prioritizing financial stability, and get, make establishing like work ethic in the house and things like that, and just leading by example in those areas. Those are things I really look forward to like teaching my daughters as they get older.
Sure.
But my dad, his big impact was just kind of like let me know I had a good friend.
You know what? That in and of itself, though, is a model of manhood, right?
Yeah.
Because there are different models of manhood. It might not be his lifestyle or behavioral choices that you want to emulate, but maybe it's his unconditional and completely devoted love and support.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was, and it's great now because I see him much more involved with his grandchildren and like instilling in them some of the things that I'm preaching all the time. Yeah, it's good.
So as you see him getting older, and you've got a trajectory for your life, it's going to be different than his. And I understand that completely. So for my dad, he was inspiring in lots of ways, but he wasn't necessarily what I would consider the model of manhood that I wanted to be, right? I didn't want to pursue his life's path. And I was searching a lot of times to find the man that I wanted to be, right? And it's actually this is really strange. It was much later in my life as an adult, and my wife and I went to this. We went to a party of one of her colleagues, and here in San Diego, not a big mansion, but not a hovel, a modest house in San Diego. But it's San Diego, so it's a backyard and there's a pool because a lot of people have pools and things like that. But it was a birthday party where it was a ton of people. And he had 2 adult kids who seemed to be thriving and doing well. And I just looked around and I said, Gary, you are so wealthy. And he laughed. He's like, I'm a sales guy for IBM. I'm not wealthy. And I'm like, I was looking around. I'm in my mid-20s, and I'm like, this is wealth. Like this is it. And I realized I don't even know you, but you're this model. You're the one that I want, right? It's a healthy family. It's a happy family. It's a home that you've gotten, that you've loved. It's people who love you, with this very large party celebrating your 60th birthday. And this is the model, right? That's the person that I want to be, right? It wasn't overtly superficially successful, but to me, extremely successful. And so I think that we find that as men, as we grow up, it's not necessarily our fathers or uncles or grandfathers. It may or may not be, or it might be a combination. I think that with your dad, though, to have him as a model of support, I think is beautiful. And I love that, which doesn't discount any of the things of him that you don't want to be.
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Because like you said, there's different layers to this success, I guess you could say, as a man. And, it's not just having nice things or a big house for your family. It's like what's going on the inside and around you.
So, Justin, I've got a question for you. How would you define success as a man?
Success as a man is, I think it's being able to lead by example. I think that's very important. How to do things, but also like how to be kind to other people and how to take care of one another. I also think it's really important to be respected, and that's it's something that's earned, not given, and you earn respect by showing up and doing the things that you say you're going to do and you need to do. And then I also look at like success as man is like being loved. You could have all the nice things and people may Ghost turned on the TV. Just be in love and appreciated by the people around you. I think that's another like level of success to be able to achieve.
So I think that's actually very interesting. That one of the salient measures of success that you think for a man is being loved.
Yeah,
Right? Traditionally, that might not be a quote unquote masculine definition of success.
totally.
It could be power, it could be influence. But I think you said a couple of really interesting things. One is leading by example, not necessarily leading because you want the power, but leading because that helps other people get better themselves. And then two, being loved. Um, do you, do you think it's hard for men to express that kind of love and to feel like they can to share with other people that giving and receiving love is something that's a little bit more important than we might talk about?
Totally. I think now more than ever, like some of the conversations are getting opened up. Because like you said, like traditionally, yeah, I feel like even the way my perception of being a man was when I was younger, and even until like more recently, is just like you got to be this like tough guy that physically protects everybody, and you can like pay for everything, and like that's how your love is earned.
Mm.
And what I realize is like, the stuff really doesn't matter if there is no like love with it. And it's good to be open and like vulnerable, and that's where you get like the right support, and you can live more authentically, and that's going to allow you to be happier and share that with other people, the people that are around you.
So, when do you think this transition happened for you in terms of that understanding or realization?
Over the last couple of years, I've just done a lot more self discovery within myself and learning more about sometimes how our values are shaped, or how we think of things really comes from the environment that we're raised in.
Mm-hmm.
And that
A
has
lot
such
of conditioning, when we're young.
like as a child, you only know the world that basically your parents allow you access to.
Mm-hmm.
And that may not be what the best thing is for you, or who you end up becoming, aligning like what your values are. So learning just more about myself and why things affect me certain ways, or like how things trigger different emotions with me, is a lot. It's just like it's like learning to be more like safe with yourself.
Hmm.
And then once I think you achieve that, then you can share that with other people and like allow others to feel safe around you.
Oh, I love that. That's actually a really beautifully phrased statement. That other people feel more safe around you if you feel safe with yourself. You mentioned that when you were a youngster, you were pretty shy. Oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, either shyness and intuitiveness and introvertedness also comes with some sensitivity. As you look back now, do you think just as a person, you are a sensitive person?
Yeah, definitely. I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. I was like, I think I'm super sensitive.
A highly sensitive person?
Yeah, like I feel emotions really strong. And I see it with my oldest daughter too. She's kind of transitioning to these like teenage years. As she's a lot more emotional and she feels bad about it. And I'm trying to teach her that like it's okay, if you feel like crying when you hear like a sad song, like that's okay. It's like it's okay to like feel your emotions, and whether they're good or they're bad, but it's like feel them, and then also use it as an opportunity to like learn more about why things make you feel the way they feel. So I think it's like it's a good learning space.
Yeah, I really like what you said there, because not only do you feel things, but think about why you feel certain ways, because suddenly then you can learn more about you when you realize how you respond or why you're feeling these different emotions, because then that allows you just to kind of respond in the way that you want to respond, right? Because if you can understand the roots of the emotion, then you can kind of figure out, okay, well, how do I want to react and respond to the emotion
Right.
itself? So not let the emotion control me.
Taking over you. And yeah. And I think that's something that we all I should teach this stuff in school instead of.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because one of the challenges I think with school or with conversations like this is a lot of kids and a lot of young men don't know how, or
Right.
they haven't talked about how to think about feelings. And, there's maybe, especially in men, there might be a stigma about being sensitive,
Right.
right? Or there's when someone says, "Oh, you're sensitive," the question is, why is that a bad thing, right? Because being sensitive also means being aware and being in touch and being intuitive. And I think especially in the personal training business, if you're not sensitive, I don't think you could be very successful. Then I don't know how
Right.
you would respond to your client needs.
Yeah, exactly. And I've seen that, I've seen that with other coaches.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So I guess a question I'd have for you as you look ahead, 10, 15 years, we talked about kind of Justin as a youth. You think now Justin as an older man. What kind of man do you aspire to be? Who is that guy 10, 15 years from now who looks back and says, that was myself in my mid 30s. And this is kind of what I was thinking about. What do you hope to be thinking about and doing and being in the next 10 to 15 years?
I want to keep helping and inspiring other people. Maybe it's not in a one-on-one personal training session, but maybe it's helping people grow their business or helping guys that do want some more mentorship in life.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to get more involved in stuff like that. But also, I feel like I'm on a good track. I don't know if we ever get exactly perfectly where we want to be and we're like, I made it and I have everything. Maybe we do. I haven't got there yet. I still have a lot of things like to prove to myself and to get better at. But I do know that I'm improving, and I do reflect regularly over the years and months of just being like, okay, like I have everything I wanted when I was a 17-year-old moving, away from Michigan to the big city. Like I can look back and be like, okay, I have a gym in, Beverly Hills in Los Angeles, and I got 3 healthy, beautiful kids, and I have like a great relationship, and I have a nice car, and I live in a cool spot. And it's like all these things I want as like a 17-year-old I have. And there's things I want, when I'm 50, 60 years old, some more stability across the field of everything. But I know I'm gonna keep working on it to figure it out. And I think if you stay focused on something, like nothing happens overnight, but you manifest it over time, it becomes just your reality.
I love that. Yeah, you manifest it over time. It does become reality. All right. So this has been fantastic. Thank you for being so open. I do have one final question for you that I ask all my guests. So who is someone that you know that I don't know, but that I should know?
I would love for you to meet this guy. His name is Moon.
Moon.
Yes. I'm gonna send him your direction. We've had conversations like this just sitting on the couch.
Perfect.
And he has a very similar mindset as me, and I'm proud to see him as he grows along his journey because I've known him for a long time. But I'd love to get you guys connected.
That'd be cool. I'd love to speak to Moon. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, Justin, you're fabulous. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me on here.
All righty. Have a great evening.
Take care.
Oh, yeah. Well, all right, Justin Werner. What a fantastic conversation. What a wonderful story of his own thoughts about his sensitivity, right? Being an introvert, being somewhat shy, but acknowledging that he's a sensitive man. But he's also a very strong man physically, but mentally, and from a sense of his own fortitude. Having the strength to embark on a life of your own at 17 and live a life that poses challenges, right? Independent business, raising 3 daughters, that is challenging, right? And as a sensitive person, he's got to understand how to navigate all of that with all of his feelings too. So what did we learn from Justin? Well, what I've learned is that confidence is a habit that you can cultivate, and maybe one of the most important magic words that you've got. We talked about the most important magic word, which is help, but maybe a runner-up is confidence. Not only feeling it in yourself, but giving it to other people, right? To have that sense of bravery, to risk and to put yourself out into unknown situations, but having the confidence that you can take care of yourself. Also having the confidence to love and having the confidence to be loved. Now that's the ticket. Well, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I hope you enjoy this podcast. You have a great story to tell, and I'd love to hear about your story too. You can visit us at menfolkjourneys.com, where you can book a conversation, and I'd love to learn more about what you're going through. What do you define to be a successful man? And are you living a life that you think is successful? I'll put that question out to you. Thank you for listening. Word Bid Falarid.